Hello, in this video I wanted to talk about how a possible German victory in the Battle of Stalingrad would have altered the war on the Eastern Front in World War II. Now, to my less military historically educated viewers, the Battle of Stalingrad was a battle on the Eastern Front of World War II in the city of Stalingrad, named after the Soviet Union's great leader, Comrade Stalin. Don't try Russian accents. Note for future videos. Yes, Comrade Stalin, named after him, funnily enough. And in this city was 22 German divisions, which equals to about 200,000 men. And with those 22 German divisions was a number of Italians, Romanians, and Bulgarians, which equal to about 145,000 men. So that's about, what, 350,000, 335,000 men in this one city, in this one pocket. And so the general commanding all of these German and Joint Axis allies army was named, well, yes, he was named General Paulus. But the army was the 6th Army, and this was kind of the proud, proper German 6th Army that had swept through the Ukraine and onto the oil fields to supply the advancing panzers and tigers of the Wehrmacht. So yes, this is the 6th Army in Stalingrad, and opposing the 6th Army was Field Marshal Zhukov of the Red Army with all of his Soviet buddies. And when I say all of his, I mean a lot of them. A lot of them. So the Soviets had tons of troops. The Germans, the Italians, and the rest of them had tons of troops all around this one city. And as history continues in the correct historical timeline, Field Marshal Zhukov wins this battle quite spectacularly, sends his T-34s around Stalingrad and completely encircles it, and takes out 22 German divisions and about 320,000 Axis men. And historians and the general public, historians kind of agree that this was a major turning point on the Eastern Front, and if not, a major turning point in the whole of World War II itself. Because from Stalingrad onwards, Hitler and the joint German high staff, field staff, I know my German military organization, no I don't. From Stalingrad onwards, they didn't really make any gains. The Red Army pushed them back slowly until 1945 they took Berlin. So Stalingrad was kind of seen as the big, this will change the war. And, well, I think rightfully so, it did kind of change the war. But what if the Germans had won? What if the Germans had successfully captured and held Stalingrad, and Field Marshal Zhukov's T-34s hadn't completely overtaken it? And so I put forward the theory that the reason that Field Marshal Zhukov, or the reason, that Stalingrad was such a successful victory for the Soviets was that they took out the 300,000 roughly men. It wasn't about recapturing the city. It was just about killing 22 German divisions. And so, if the Germans and the Italians and the rest had successfully held on to Stalingrad, then they would have this city, yippee, but that's about it. There would still be this massive amount of Soviet peasants just around the corner. There would be no kind of, Panzer IVs encircling all these amounts of Russians, which, yes, that happened in 1943, 1942, earlier on in the war. But, no, not at Stalingrad. So if the Germans had successfully held Stalingrad against the Russian horde, then, well, they wouldn't have benefited out of it, if you ask me. Because they wouldn't have had the capability to outmaneuver the Russians and encircle any Russians, because they would just be trying to hold on to this strategic city. And so, if the Germans had succeeded in the Battle of Stalingrad, I don't think they would have benefited it from as much as if the Russians had benefited from the victory at Stalingrad. And so there's my theory. If the Germans had won the Battle of Stalingrad, it really wouldn't have changed the course of the Eastern Front that much.